How do the Orthodox feel about Thomas Aquinas? Let's show that on the page. How do the Orthodox feel about Thomas Aquinas? Well, I don't think there's any, official declaration that we can say, well, here's what the Orthodox Church has said in council or anything. We don't really do that kind of thing very often, unless there's serious issues like Origen and his teachings were condemned in an ecumenical council, of course. So I don't think we can have, I can't really say, well, here is the official Orthodox. The Orthodoxy doesn't do that. We're not that kind of legalistic organizational approach to things. But what have saints and others written? Well, there's definitely a robust critique and rejection of certain aspects of his teaching. I'm not familiar with all of that literature. I know that there's serious problems with certain aspects of his soteriology with regard to theosis and the grace of God being communicated, the divine energies being communicated. I know that there's been a number of recent studies that we can find. If you go to academia and put it in, you can find Orthodox scholars reflecting on that. There's a lot of positive things that Orthodox have said at the same time, because of course there's not all black, God forbid. There's all kinds of things, but that doesn't mean therefore we consider him to be an Orthodox theologian and consistent with the fathers. The general stance and way of theology that he did and how he approached it is unknown among the church fathers. Sometimes you say, whoa, wait a minute. We have Father St. Maximus, we have St. John of Damascus. What are you talking about, Father? Well, there's similarities, but this over-rational logical analysis, his methodology of question-answer, doubts and all this thing is unknown to church fathers. There's a question of the observation of the spiritual principles that you see in the church fathers. They're very much cognizant of following the Holy Fathers and not the philosophers, where he seems to be quite concerned with examining all of what the philosophers had written, the ancient philosophers, Aristotle. You really don't see that in the church fathers at all. I don't think the church fathers were interested per se they were not interested per se in philosophy. They used philosophy, philosophical terms. Some of them were well versed in it for the sake of communicating the gospel to their generation and their people, just like we should be in every generation. But all of it was to bring people to Christ, and it was on the basis of their ascetic struggle and their life in Christ that they judged and assessed and made and utilized whatever was offered by the philosophers and ancient philosophers. So I think the methodology is different. It's not the same. Of course, he embraced the filioque, which is a heresy. The church has rejected in council. The Eighth Ecumenical Council rejected it. The Pope was present and rejected it. And they turned away from that. And then he doubled down and justified it. So that's a heresy, and that means he is teaching heresy. He also innovated in various things. I'll give you just one example. He innovated with respect to the question of baptism. He clearly tries to justify pouring and sprinkling without there being a necessity, like an economy. And he does not really make those distinctions that are clear in the Orthodox approach to this question. And he justifies that, look, baptism is really about a washing, he says, and not about absolutely necessary that people be immersed. But that's not the patristic teaching. There are canons that clearly reject that idea, and in fact defrock the priest who does not do triple immersion when there's no necessity, like an emergency baptism or someone who is paralyzed or something like that. In all other cases, if there should be a struggle to totally fulfill the exactitude of the teaching of the church with what is a baptism, and it means immersion. The word means immersion. It means dipping or dunking, but not pouring or sprinkling. So, just a few examples. There are probably many more. I'm not a scholar on Aquinas to tell you, details of analysis here, but that's probably not the time for that anyway. So I would say, because of the filioque, because of some of these innovations, this methodology of doing theology, these things are problematic. We do not embrace those. Does that mean that there's not many interesting and important contributions in other ways? Maybe. I can't really speak to that. I'm not a scholar of Aquinas, but certainly not all black. But there's serious problems. And when you see an embrace of a major Trinitarian heresy from the Orthodox perspective, I mean, St. Gregory Palamas has a treatise against the filioque. St. Photios the Great, a treatise against the filioque. There are many others who've written against the filioque throughout the 1,000 years since the adoption in the West, in Rome, that is. So what can we say? I mean, if you put a little poison in a glass of water, you're going to drink it. That's a poisonous doctrine at the root of the apostasy of the West, and totally heretical. So it makes it very difficult for us to get excited and embrace his teachings.